Frick! Hey y'all, my name is Nat. I hope you're having a terrific day today, and for this video we are going to be doing my TBR for the 2025 fantasy subreddit bingo board. Alright, so before we get to anything bookish, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below, as well as tell me in the comments, are you going to be partaking in this year-long reading challenge? Are you now intrigued and tempted to? Let's talk about it. Also, if you have recommendations for any of these prompts, please tell me. Please let me know, especially the ones where I'm unsure. Definitely give me recommendations for those. All right, so this is my second year partaking in the fantasy subreddit bingo board. This is a year-long reading challenge where the subreddit gives you a bingo board and you have to do your best to try and read speculative fiction books that complete each of the prompts. You can try and get a bingo, or you can be an overachiever like myself and try to black out the board. If you do so, you get a nice little title next to your name in the subreddit. I had a lot of fun with this last year. I actually did a little wrap up of last year's board on Monday, so I'll put a link to that video in the cards up above if you missed it. But the 2025 board has officially been announced, and of course, I am rip-roaring and ready to go. I've already completed a prompt on it. While this board is definitely subject to change, I do like having a TBR so I can have an idea of books for this board, and I especially did my best to try and focus on either my own TBR or series I'm in the middle of. It could be really easy to just start a million new series with this board, like I did last year. So without further ado, let's officially jump in, and I'm gonna slide my way over here so I have a little bit more room. So there is an easy and hard mode for every single prompt. I do my best to try and complete the hard mode version, but some of them I couldn't quite hit, or I have no idea what would fulfill hard mode. So again, recommendations welcomed. Starting in the top left corner with Knights and Paladins, hard mode is if the main character has some sort of an oath or a promise that they need to fulfill. I already do not have a set option for this one, but chances are I probably will be utilizing a Star Wars prompt for this. I've been in the middle of reading the Star Wars canon novels, and what's the next step up after a Padawan? A Jedi Knight. Chances are one of the Star Wars novels I read this year will probably fall into this. As for the easier hard mode, that's going to be a little bit more difficult and probably will require me to actually read the book before I know if it'll work for it or not. On to the next prompt with a hidden gem to read a book that has less than 1,000 reviews on Goodreads. You can't do a new release or an advanced reader copy for this one because that's kind of cheating. Hard mode is 5 years or older, which unfortunately this one does not complete, but I am eyeing Wrath Becomes Her by Aiden Polydoros. I was very surprised to see that this has less than 1,000 ratings on Goodreads because this cover is so freaking pretty. This is kind of a Frankenstein retelling, but with Jewish mythology, as it is set during the Nazi occupation of Germany, where the main character's daughter has recently passed, and he ends up bringing her back to life in the form of a golem. That sounds so cool and pretty unique. I've never heard anybody mix those two together, so I'm really intrigued to officially pick this one up and try it out. Next prompt is pretty self-explanatory: to read a book that was published in the 1980s. I had a hard time with the 90s prompt last year, and 80s is no different. Hard mode is to read a book written by an author of color. I think I'm gonna try and go with something by Octavia Butler, as this is an author I hear a lot about. She's responsible for some of the quintessential sci-fi novels out there. I'm not 100% sure what book that'll be. She's really the only direction I have right now. After that is high fashion. This one's to read a book that fashion is important to the story. Like, it could be a crafty main character or a character where like fashion is an important aspect of like maybe their powers or something. I'm not really sure about this one. Hard mode is the main character makes cloth or fibers, and I did see, thanks to the recommendations page, that Heartless Hunter by Kristen Sorelli will apparently fulfill this, which works out so perfectly because I just recently bought this and I've heard a ton of positive things on it. I've also heard that the magic system in this universe is really interesting. Don't know if it ties into the fashion element or not, but I did see that the person who recommended it said the fashion element is actually most important for the male main character, and that's pretty interesting. I didn't expect to see that. So series I'll be starting with this board, already at 1. Luckily though, for the next prompt, Down with the System, I'm planning to continue a series. Hard mode on this one is if it's not a government system, and I don't know if this really will work for hard mode or not. I'm kind of on the fence about it. But Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett, this is the second in the Founders trilogy, which I've really been wanting to continue, but just have not had the opportunity to yet. I really enjoyed Founderside, and how that book closes out, you can tell a revolution is coming. They're on the cusp of it, and I'm really excited to keep reading this. The government is definitely going to be involved in the taking down of a system. I just don't know if like it's the only aspect, because it actually seems like this is going to be affecting like the entire society they know on the whole. It might work for hard mode. I'm not sure. If you read the series and you have an opinion on that, please let me know. On to the next line with Impossible Places. My first thought was The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, which technically I could do because you're allowed one reread. I just don't know if that's necessarily going to happen this year or not. So the other book I thought might fit for this is A Fire Endless by Rebecca Ross, because when I was reading the first book, A River Enchanted, there's a comment that the fairies can actually like impact how you experience distance on this isle. So if they're messing with you, they can make it so that a 10-minute walk turns into 3 hours. Or if you're kind to them and, give them offerings and such, when you need to move fast, they will make a 30-minute walk into 3. That's what I got here so far. The other thought I have is Piranesi by Susanna Clark. A little bit more hesitant about. I am very intrigued by that book. I've heard a lot of positive things on it, but this one I'm already in the middle of reading, and it would also help me close out a series. I'm leaning towards this one being my choice for it. Oh, hard mode for that one is 50% or more. It takes place in the Impossible Place. Fire Endless will not fulfill that, I can almost guarantee. Next one is A Book in Parts, where the book itself is broken down into different sections. Hard mode is 4 or more. And it's been a minute since I picked up the prior books in this series, but I think the Illuminae Files by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman did that. So if I can, I would love to close that series out with the last book, 𝗖cie. This is when I'm going to have to go check it out at my library and see whether or not it does, or if I'm misremembering that, because I'm honestly not sure. But that's what I'm currently eyeing for this. The other ones I could also look at is, again, a Star Wars novel. There are some of them where they do that breakdown. I don't know if they're going to break down into 4 different parts necessarily. But A Girl Can Hope. After that is Gods and Pantheon, obviously to read a book with divine beings, but hard mode is if there are multiple pantheons. That's what tripped me up. I was not sure what to do with that one. However, I looked at the recommendations list and I did see A Master of Jinn by P. Djeli Clark, and this is a book I keep hearing about. I just recently, I don't remember who it was, somebody I watched recently just had a glowing review of it and really intrigued me, made me want to prioritize this. So I figured, why not? I'll go ahead and slide it in gear. That'll allow me to prioritize it a little bit sooner, and then also, it fulfills the prompt on the board. Honestly, thinking back on it, I have no idea what this book is really about though. Next is to read the last in a series. I love this one. This is great for me. Hard mode is if the series is 4 or more books long. And I'm definitely going to utilize a Star Wars novel here. Specifically, I'm looking at Trials of the Jedi by Charles Soule. This will be officially closing out the adult High Republic series that's been ongoing. I'm excited to see how things are going to close out for certain characters, but I'm also apprehensive because I haven't been loving the turn this has been taking with the villain character. So not sure on how that's going to go. But this is going to be like the 6th book in the adult High Republic series. Definitely fulfills hard mode. Next one is to read a book club or read along pick from the options that are hosted on the fantasy subreddit. Hard mode is to actually pick a book that's an active choice and then partake in the discussion. I don't know if that one will happen, if I'm being honest, so I went ahead and looked at the backlist that they have and noticed Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames was on there, and I own that. Really want to start into the series because it kind of sounds like a D&D campaign, if I'm being honest. So series we may start into is now up to 4. Starting out the 3rd row strong because I've already completed the first prompt, which is parents. Read a book where the main character has a child they have to care for. It does not have to be their biological child. It just has to be a kid. Hard mode is the child is also a main character in the story. Brotherhood by Mike Chen, where we get to see Anakin taking care of a Padawan, Mil Alabeth, and she is one of the main 5 points of view that we see from. So this completed hard mode. Worked out great for me. I love it. Next up is epistolary. So to read a book that is told in an epistolary format. Hard mode is the entire story is told in an epistolary format. So I am going to be doubling up because I'm planning to start this one in May and actually reading it in the timeline that the story is told. Dracula by Bram Stoker falls into the speculative fiction. Thank you very much. Told in an epistolary format, starts on May 1st, and I think it spans to like November, I want to say. I will definitely be getting this read, and that way it'll complete this prompt. Next up is published in 2025. Hard mode is that it is a author's debut work. For this one, I'm currently looking at The Gentleman and His Valsmith by Rebecca Ide. I heard about this one from Saga Press and was very intrigued. It is a queer fantastical mystery story. I think like a locked room mystery too, which just sounds very up my alley. And ever since they sent me an email about it, I like absolutely want to read this book. There's always the possibility this might change because I do occasionally like to read new releases, but I'm not the best at it. So that's what I'm currently eyeing. And like I said, I've been wanting to read it anyway. It is also her debut work, so it'll work for hard mode as well. Next up is to read from an author of color, but hard mode is to read a horror novel. And this is perfect. I'm also partaking in the horror bingo that's being hosted by Wicked Reading and have already been planning to read Empire of Wild by Sherry Dimeline for that, so it'll work for this one as well. This is based on a native folklore story, a Rougarou, a werewolf-like creature that haunts the roads and woods of native people's communities. I've heard a lot of positive things about it. Like I said, this is going to be working for multiple different TBRs now, and I own it. So I really just need to read it. Next up is to read a book that was published by either a small press or was independently published. Hard mode is the book has under 100 ratings on Goodreads or is written by a marginalized author. Lucky for me, I searched based on ratings and noticed that Where the Dead Brides Gather by Nuzo Ono, that'll count for this. I don't remember how this got on my TBR, but I think it's because of the cover because it's very pretty. Actually, no. Maybe somebody talked about this at my fantasy book club. That might be what it is. But this cover is really gorgeous. I don't know too much about it, but I do know it's horror and it does have some fantastical elements. So this will work perfectly. Next up is another series that I will be starting into, but I'm not too mad about it because I've actually been really hoping to start into the series here soon. For Biopunk, I am planning to pick up The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. I've heard this is another fantastical mystery series. I think it's actually like very Sherlockian, and I love that. Absolutely up my alley. Plus, after reading Foundry Side, I'm really enjoying it. I've been wanting to check out more of this author's work, and the cover of this one is also just really pretty. So when I saw somebody recommend it for this, I knew I was gonna go with that one. Unfortunately, it does not fulfill hard mode, however, which is that electricity is not involved in the biopunk elements, which honestly, this is a like subgenre I have very little knowledge about. So it'll be interesting to see it in this novel when I don't really understand what it is. Next up is Elves and/or Dwarves. Hard mode is to read one where the main character is one of these species. And I'm not 100% sure this is going to be it because I don't know if I want to start this project. I know it'll be a little bit of a project, but I am currently eyeing Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. Only the first book. I don't know if the rest of the series will happen, but I do know whenever I start into this series, I'm gonna need to keep myself on top of it because I'm very nervous about the writing style in this series overall. I've heard it can be kind of rough. I do want to actually read this series after finally watching the movies and really enjoying them. I've been wanting to try out the novels. This might be what officially pushes me to do that. We'll see. I'll keep you guys posted on it. Next up is to read a book with a LGBT plus protagonist. That'll be pretty easy for me. The hard mode version is that they are marginalized in some aspect, and so I think I am going to be going with The Sunbearer Trials by Aiden Thomas. The main character in this one is trans, as well as the story itself is based in Latin culture. I think this is a tournament. I know it's supposed to be pretty reminiscent of like Percy Jackson. I've heard a lot of positive things about this series and have been wanting to pick it up. So again, this might be what finally pushes me to do so. Next one is the prompt that I decided to replace. You were allowed one replacement. And so I decided to go with this one because I really don't do super great with short stories. So my current plan is to replace this with the prompt from the 2021 board, which is a character who is out for revenge. And I specifically did that so I can try to double up with a book from my 10 books for 2025, that being Vicious by 𝗖cieः𝘁𝘁. I've been meaning to read this book for so freaking long because I think they're like trying to become super villains. I'm a giant superhero fan, so of course I need to read this. Also, it's Schwab. I know I love their writing, and this series is so well loved. It is a booktube darling. I really just need to freaking read it. My friend very kindly put it on my 10 books list to kind of, encourage me to pick it up, and this is me adding to that. Final one on this fourth row is A Stranger in a Strange Land. Hard mode version of it is that the main character is a refugee or an immigrant. I think this will count. The first book would 100% count for this. I think the second should as well. All the Hidden Paths by Foz Meadows, another one where I want to try and continue this series. I really loved the first book. Just need to make myself pick up the second. In the first book, one of the main characters, Velicen, is sort of forced into moving to this neighboring country in order initially to marry the princess, but after he is unfortunately forced out of the closet in a very traumatic way, he ends up marrying the prince, which isn't really a problem for this neighboring country, but his home country is not so open-minded, unfortunately. So he does kind of end up immigrating to 𝗖cie. So I do feel like this should count. And again, this will help me continue on with the series and actually finish it out too. From what I can tell of reading the summary, not too much time passes between the first book and the second book. And the first book literally goes through all of the events in like a week. So, if it's still been less than like a month since he moved there, I feel like he's still a stranger in a strange land. All right, so we're on to the last row. And first up is to recycle a prompt from a prior board. So technically, you kind of get like a second replacement prompt because you get to reuse one from a prior board. And this time I decided to go with a pick from the 2022 board, which was standalone. Hard mode is to do the same hard version from the prior board, which in this case was that the pick is not from the fantasy subreddit's standalone favorite list. And I can guarantee this one was not, because not only is it YA, but it's pretty unpopular. And that would be The Midnight Girls by 𝗖cieः𝘁𝘁𝗁𝘁. This is also a situation where I am trying to utilize another book from my 10 books for 2025 list, trying to make it so that I actually read those books. This one was picked for me by my best friend Molly, and I've been really intrigued about it because I tried a prior book from this author and did enjoy it. This one I think is another witchy sapphic story, but it looks like the two main characters are both competing for the prince's hand, and then something changes and suddenly they're more interested in each other, and that's where I'm excited. Next up is a cozy sci-fi fantasy. I really considered trying out some cozy sci-fi, but I do already own The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst, which is definitely a cozy fantasy story. It's very cottagecore from what I understand, and I think it's like got a pretty prevalent romance going on as well, and the main character has a sentient spider plant that's her friend. I'm really interested to see how that works. Next up is to read a book with a generic title. They give you a list of words and they want you to pick a book that has one of those words in the title. I shockingly actually had a pretty difficult time with this one. Hard mode is if it had two of those terms or like a color or an animal listed. I don't have any for hard mode currently on my TBR, but if there's one you really recommend that falls into that, let me know. I'm currently looking at A Steeping of Blood by 𝗖cieः𝘁𝘁𝗁𝘁, which is the second in her Tempest of Tea series. So again, helping me continue on with the series. And plus, I really enjoyed the first book and want to pick up the second. But I do also own Certain Dark Things by Silvia Moreno Garcia, To Fulfill Dark. This one, I just haven't had a reason to pick up, but I love Silvia Moreno Garcia's writing. And so I know chances are this will be an enjoyable time for me. I'm pretty sure it's Mexican vampires. I think that's what this one is. Next prompt is actually a new one, not a book. To do something that's not involving reading, like watch a TV show or a movie, play D&D, something like that. Hard mode is to write and post a review on the fantasy subreddit, which I might do actually. I don't usually post reviews on Reddit, but who knows, maybe this will be what officially pushes me to do that. And then the final one is to read a book with pirates. Hard mode is they're not seafaring pirates, which I have questions about. I'm very intrigued on what works for this. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't have any ideas for hard mode, but I do currently have 2 books on my own TBR that could work for the Pirates prompt. First one being The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Sharon Shakbordi. I have been wanting to start into this series as well. This book is freaking beautiful. I didn't love The City of Brass, which has made me a little bit more hesitant to start into this one. The story setup of this sounds a little bit more up my alley, and it's pirates. I do really enjoy a good pirate story. So I'm gonna put this one here. Maybe I'll finally start this one. Or I do also own The Price of Redemption by Sean Carter, which I received from Saga Press, and I've never really heard anybody talk about it, which always kind of makes me more intrigued to pick a book up, is if I've never heard anyone else discuss it. It is a swashbuckling fantasy that is following a main character who is a pirate. Really intrigued about it. So yeah, I have some options on this last one. So there you go. That is my current plan for the 2025 fantasy subreddit bingo board. Again, as I said at the beginning, subject to change. Looking at my 2024 TBR versus my final, they're pretty different. But again, I'm gonna try and do my best to prioritize the books I already own. That's awesome, but there's always the chance that I end up reading a book and midway through realize, hey, this will count for this prompt, and end up sliding it in there. I also just remembered that I forgot to mention, you can't double up on authors, unfortunately. That is one that did get me a little bit last year. I don't think any of my current plans shit, and it got me this year too, because Robert Jackson Bennett. Oh, frick. This rule keeps getting me. Oh. Anyway, that's it for today, y'all. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, leave me the stack of books emoji in the comments. I have all my socials, as well as a few ways you can support me, including a Patreon linked in the description. I come out videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you. Bye!